Let me tell you what my deep research and basically vision is.
I hope there's Bigfoot. I don't think there is.
I'm not telling you nothing.
The aliens won't let it happen.
Happening now, breaking.
Bernie Sanders is angry.
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
What are the tips? Give me some tips on how to work with Wes Anderson.
Be ready to speak very fast and very clearly, because that's definitely one key thing.
I will only tell the truth.
Until you and 6 kids you barely know in wet bathing suits have surrounded 9 chimpanzees outside of a Wendy's. You probably really don't know yourself, okay?
Yep. And we back.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to your new favorite podcast and the best in political, sports, and paranormal news coverage. I'm your host, Wes Anderson, and this is In the Shed. This is episode 37, so whether you're back for more or finding us for the first time this week, hey, thanks for tuning in. It is late Thursday night, March 31st, and I am in a shed in the backyard of my home in Alabama, just so I can hang out with you tools and talk about the latest headlines, stories, and rumors in the world of politics, sports, and the paranormal. My guest tonight is systems engineer, wife, and mother Chelsey Glassco. I've asked Chelsey to come on the show tonight to share her story with us of growing up in a conservative evangelical Christian home, coming out as gay to family and friends, the hardship and trauma that she has faced and overcome, what her life looks like now, and what she has learned about herself and the world around her in the process. Chelsey's an incredible person with a powerful story. This is a conversation that needs to be heard. Chelsey, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, Wesley. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be a part of this.
Absolutely. Welcome into the shed. Chelsey's not with us in the shed. She's over the phone, but that's okay, too. I think those police sirens are on my end. There's already some fun. So, Chelsey, why don't you just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and what life was like for you growing up?
Okay. Well, I'd like to think that I had a pretty idyllic childhood. I had a mom and a dad and an older brother. We were quite close. My parents were my best friends for many years. And in probably second or third grade, realized that I was different on the playground with classmates. And I'm thinking, well, let's play house, but let there be 2 mommies, or can I be the daddy? And mentioning that to friends and immediately getting kind of a stop sign thrown up, like, hey, we're not going to do that. That's weird. Ooh, gross. And, laughing it off and saying, yeah, you're right. That's silly. But coming away from that conversation, even as young as, 6 and 7 years old, thinking, wow, okay, well, that feels right to me, but this is not what others could seem okay.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of tucking that away and growing up, and as you do get older and you learn more about yourself and about others, realizing that those feelings just grew more intense, that while my friends were attracted to opposite sex folks in our grade, feeling attracted to members of the same sex, and that being really scary, and feeling like I must be the only one in the world like that. So just feeling really isolated. I did confide in a few of my closest friends in 8th or 9th grade, and just kind of shared with them that, hey, I looked up the word gay in the dictionary, and I think this might be what I am.
Wow. So you had no concept really of you just at a young age already began to realize that something was different about you than your peers, but you didn't even have a concept for what that meant or what it looked like.
Exactly. Yeah. And as you get older in middle school, people start throwing around slang and, different terms, and And so hearing the word gay and thinking, I should look this up. And seeing what it is, of course, one being happy, but also the other being attracted to members of the same sex, and thinking, okay, wow, this is a thing, and apparently it's at least widespread enough that it made it in the dictionary.
Yeah, Webster is familiar.
Yeah,
even if
you know, so that legitimized it for me a little bit, and it made me kind of more open to what was going on around me, realizing that I had probably encountered LGBTQ individuals in my life and maybe just didn't realize that's what they were until I had a word to put with it.
Right.
And then in the media, you know, looking around and going, you know, oh my goodness, Rosie O'Donnell did what? You know, who is this Katie Lang person? Who's Melissa Etheridge? You know, just starting to see these different people and think, oh, maybe that's what I am.
So when you looked up this word in the dictionary and you find out that there's a term for this that's called gay, was it like a eureka moment for you where you were like, this describes what I've been feeling all along, even at that young age?
Definitely.
Wow.
Definitely.
And
was
and
a
this
happy
is
moment in that it made me feel legitimized in how I felt, but it was also a scary moment,
right.
Because it legitimized what I felt.
And this is, I mean, we're talking about young childhood.
Yes.
So we actually knew each other as children. We went to school together for like fourth grade, maybe fifth grade. At some point, you went to a different school. We went to the same school in middle school. And then kind of I have just like loosely kept up with you on social media from then on. But at this time, when you're having these thoughts about yourself and your realization, I knew you at this point as a child.
Yeah.
And my memory is that like we were very similar in the sense that we were both kind of straight A students and goody two shoes, came from Christian homes that were very conservative, or we were brought up in the church. Is that sort of accurate to how you remember things growing up?
Definitely. Church was a huge part of my life, and you were a kindred spirit. You know, I always found that my closest friends tended to be folks that were closely connected to church. You know, that was my culture.
Right. And what was your home like? Was with your parents being conservative evangelical Christians, was being gay or gay people something that was even talked about in your home at all?
Well, I remember bringing up homosexuality just in general one time to my family, trying very hard not to relate it to me in any way, but just in general, that I had heard the term and I was curious. And I remember coming home a week at most later, and my bed being covered with all different, like, Focus on the Family Christian books about the ex-gay movement, about homosexuality in the Bible, about what Scripture says about marriage, and you know, just being encouraged to read these.
Wow.
And this would tell me everything I needed to know. And just by reading those books, I knew very quickly that this was controversial, it was
right.
complicated, and that this was going to be a rough road if this was in fact how I was.
And this was like middle school when this happened?
Yes.
So you had come out at this point to a few close friends, but not to your family at all.
Correct.
Do you think that your parents had any type of indication or suspicion, and maybe that's why they bought all of these books, or was it just our kid is curious, let's nip it in the bud?
You know, they were really great about resources, about, you know, if I was interested in personalities, I would come home and I would have a book on the personalities. If I was interested in something, they would do everything they could to find resources. And so part of me thinks that perhaps this was just another topic that they thought I needed to be educated on. But the degree that they brought those resources, you know, it wasn't one book.
Right.
It was 10 books, makes me think that they did have some concerns, that maybe they were seeing, you know, some things in me, around me, that were concerning to them. Around this time was when they moved me to a Christian school.
Okay.
I find that interesting.
Okay. It's because I remember us going to school together in elementary school, and then
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know where you went, but I remember
Yep.
at some point in middle school you came back to public school.
That's right. Yeah. In about 5th grade, they transferred me to a Christian school. They just said that, they thought it would be a better environment for me. They were kind of concerned about some of the influences and just, didn't like the idea of some of the things that I might be around in middle school.
It was me.
Yeah. Yes, it was you.
Yeah.
They were like, we must get you away from Wesley.
Absolutely.
No, you were the least of their worries. But, looking back, it makes me wonder if there was more to it than, Chelsey needs to go to a school that's really hard on cursive writing and has Bible class, that, maybe they were sensing some things. I don't know.
So you were already aware that something was different about you at a young age.
Yes.
Everybody in middle school and even to a degree in high school, you start kind of figuring out who you are anyway. Like, that's a normal part of life, that you decide who you want to be, what's important to you. You try different identities on, so to speak. What made you reach a point where you felt like this is for sure a part of who I am, to the degree that you decided to share it with some of your close friends?
Well, let's see. So after reading all of these books, I'm really immersed in what the Bible says and different people's experiences and what it looks like to be a gay person. And reading these materials not only educated me, but they also really emphasized what I was feeling. Again, the word legitimized.
Right.
I read these things and I said, this is not something that I've made up in my head. This is not something that is just a passing phase, that this has always been a part of who I am, and it's stuck. I've tried to ignore it. I've tried to pray about it, to, distract myself with activities and boys and everything else, and it's not going away. And it started to feel like a burden, because the more that I did try to do to get rid of these feelings, the stronger they got. And of course, when you're going through puberty and all of your friends are starting to date, it even got more intense. And just realizing that holding this in was going to really have an impact on my mental health.
Yeah. And
so I needed to confide in somebody.
And it's an awkward time anyway for everybody. Middle school years are insane, and so on top of that, you've got this inner struggle where you're starting to realize something about who you are, and you're realizing it's something that can't be changed, even if you desire for it to be. I imagine that was very confusing and intimidating and scary.
Yes, I continually questioned, what did I do to deserve this? Was this, did I make some bad decisions early on? Is this punishment for someone else's sins? You hear of sins of the father and,
right.
Going through all the possibilities. Did I have a flawed relationship with my parents that led to this? Did I see something gay on television when I was a toddler? I mean, you literally process all of these things trying to figure out, why is this a part of who I am? And why is this, why is this not going away whenever I want it to go away? Because I don't want the rough life that I'm going to have if I embrace this. Because
I'm guessing, based on where we grew up and the viewpoint of a lot of people, especially then, was this something that for you at the time, your perspective was, this is something wrong with me, this is something that needs fixing, this is almost like a detrimental thing to my future?
Yes, definitely. Because as I did grow and realize that there were LGBTQ people that I had met or I had seen or heard about, it was very clear that these people were different in a bad way. They weren't spoken about, or it was in hushed tones, or they would come for visits, but they generally lived far away. There was always this mystery and this kind of underlying dread. I remember seeing a certain actress on TV that was gay, and there being kind of a joke about it, and the TV immediately turned, and hearing, "We don't watch that mess," and it was, I don't know if it was a commercial, it was something very innocent, but realizing very quickly, oh my goodness, this has to do with this person's identity, and they haven't even said anything about it. It's just because that's who they are.
Wow.
And that was really hard to swallow.
Yeah, because on the inside, you're feeling the same things, and you're wondering those things about yourself.
Yeah.
So you get to a point where you decide to share this with some of your closest friends. Who, you don't have to name names, but who were those friends? Were they friends from church, from school, from your extracurricular activities, and how did that conversation go for you?
Okay, so they were my three closest friends. We actually called ourselves the Quad. That was
Quad.
Our super cool, or so we felt.
Yeah, very cool
nickname. And so it was the four of us girls. We all went to church together, and we went to school together. And
shout out to the
we
Quad.
did everything together. We, if one of us played sports, the other three were at all the events. We called each other. We'd stay the night with each other. We would go to church together. We were just always together. And we were very different, but we really connected and clicked in a beautiful way. And, we would confide in one another whenever things were difficult. Maybe we were having boyfriend troubles or something like that. And I was struggling with these feelings, and I felt like I could trust these girls with anything that was on my heart or on my mind. And so I decided, if they're really this wonderful group of friends, I've got to tell them, because I don't feel like they truly know me unless they know this about me. And so I told them one at a time. I had one friend over to spend the night, and literally tossed and turned and said, "I need to talk to you about something." And finally she said, "Just come on out and say it. Like, just say it. Like, I can tell something's bothering you, and I think I know what it is." And me saying, I struggle with same-sex attraction. And that was how I presented it to all of them. And none of them were surprised. I,
Really?
of course, got a big hug, and, I support you. I'm here for you. But also, we're going to be here for you while you fight this. Because, partly because I presented it as a problem.
Right.
And that was what we were raised in. We were raised believing that homosexuality was a death sentence, that hell was where you were going if you ever embraced that.
Yeah, and even the language that you used in sharing this part of yourself with your closest friends, saying that you struggle with same-sex attraction, that's the language that we heard in the church growing up a lot, is people aren't gay, people just choose to lean into this same-sex attraction that they have, and it's something that can be worked out or overcome or gotten rid of. Talk about the toll that takes on a young person who's already struggling to figure out who they are and find their place in life. As you moved on from that initial coming out experience into high school, was that something that affected your mental health and your ability to just live a happy life?
Yes. It became the bane of my existence. I woke up thinking about not wanting to be gay. I thought about it during the day. I went to sleep thinking about not wanting to be gay. Used a prayer journal to write about it. Read all the scriptures, wrote the scriptures on note cards. Tried to date a variety of guys in my life. Every kind of guy. Just to try and maybe rewire myself in some way. And, once you have 5 or 6 failed genuinely. The genuine effort was there and the desire was there for these relationships to work. And when 5 or 6 in a row just completely fall flat, it is a very hopeless feeling. I felt like I was damned, honestly.
Wow.
I was in a church that we considered it the demon of homosexuality. And I remember crying and praying in the evening and thinking, what did I do to get this demon, to get this burden? What have I done, and why can't I fix it? If God is so powerful, why aren't my prayers being heard? Why am I not being delivered from this? And so it led to a lot of depression and a lot of anxiety, realizing that, well, if I go to sleep gay tonight and God comes back in the middle of the night, well, guess where I'm going?
And you were convinced that you would go to hell if this did not change about you.
Definitely, yeah.
That's a lot of pressure
nothing I
for
could do about it.
a
Yeah.
15-year-old to feel. And so in high school, you had already come out to your friends, but not to your family. You're experiencing depression, loss of interest in things around you. You're struggling internally and mentally basically every waking moment. During all of this, were you involved in extracurricular activities? Were you still plugged into church? What was life like around you at that time?
The more that I struggled with the same-sex attraction, which is how I would have put it at that time, the more involved I got with church. I was the worship leader. I actually led worship for more than just the church that I was at, but I would go to another church that had services on different nights. I was going on mission trips to Latin American countries, to South American countries. I was taking dance classes 3 nights a week. I was singing in churches on Sundays. I was raising money for different, the China Fire Bible Society and all these different Christian missions. I was spending my free time writing poetry based on scripture, singing songs and learning songs that were biblical, just immersing myself as much as possible in that Christian culture to try and defeat this, to try and finally be strong enough to get past it, and to pray the gay away.
Yeah. And I, for all of those that are listening to this episode later, the girl can sing. The girl can flat out sing. Like Chelsey has an absolute beautiful singing voice. I have a CD somewhere of a child Chelsey singing some worship songs, probably with my childhood stuff. I have that somewhere. But so you were leading worship, you were involved in your church. What was it that kept you, if you're struggling so bad? I'm sure your parents, at the time you had a very good relationship with your parents. I'm sure that they were noticing that something was wrong, that you were experiencing sadness, depression, however you want to label it. What was keeping you from sharing this inner struggle with them?
Well, like I said, I really valued the relationship that I had with them. There were times where they would go, don't you want to go out and hang out with friends? You can have a birthday. Do you want to have some friends over? 9 times out of 10, I would say, what do you guys want to do? I wanted to spend time with them. They were fun. They were wise. They were what I hoped to be, when I grew up. And there was a big part of me that wanted them to know me 100% because I did feel like I confided in them with everything else. But there was another part of me that greatly feared the change that would come once they did know this dirty little secret.
Yeah.
Because at this point it felt dirty, because I had been hiding it for so long and trying to get rid of it. It just felt like a disease.
And there was nothing scandalous about your life. There was no surface level immorality. It's not like you were a bad kid, that you were in and out of relationships. There wasn't anything that an outside person would look at other than to look at you as an upstanding child that everybody wished their kid would be. But on the inside, you're really struggling. You're really having a hard time. Did you?
Yeah.
And you genuinely believed the stuff that you were hearing, were learning. You were involved in church, and you believed it with your whole being. Did you feel like you were living a lie, that you were keeping this information from family? Was it? I imagine that was just so taxing on your soul.
Yeah, I wanted so badly to be in ministry and to make people's lives better and to direct them to this all-powerful sense of hope and, freedom. And I remember reading some diary entries from Mother Teresa, random. And she kind of became one of my heroes because she lived her life very depressed.
She did, yeah.
She spent her life in ministry, but if you read a lot of her writings and her letters to different leaders within the church, she struggled terribly with feeling hopeless, feeling detached from God, feeling like she was meant to live in sadness. And I really resonated with that. Hearing that, reading those things, it made me feel like I wasn't alone, but it also really tore me up inside, and it made me angry. Why would someone like Mother Teresa, who completely gave her life for others and for God, why would she be such a sad and depressed individual? And was that where I was headed? Not that I could ever do as much good as this person could, but I wanted to also dedicate my life to God and to the gospel and to helping others. And was I destined to be this sad and feel this much separation from God forever too? So that was an internal battle, definitely.
That is a heavy weight for a child to carry. Yeah, and a lot of people don't know that about Mother Teresa, but it's true. It's an important thing to know. I remember reading something that she wrote that was basically saying, these folks were praising her for all of the work that she did with the poor and the dying and the destitute. And they basically posed a question to her about, like, what is it like to walk around in the presence of God all the time? Because, their image of her is this holy saint of a woman. And her response was essentially, I haven't felt God's presence in weeks. And that always stuck with me, that somebody that could be so faithful in action can still feel so far away from God.
Yeah.
And I guess that's why it resonated with you, because at the time, despite all of your service and your dedication to the church and to faith, I imagine in some way you felt far away from God.
Very much so. I felt like I don't know. I felt like this had started super young. I couldn't think of a time when I hadn't felt same-sex attraction, but at the same time, I must have done something wrong. I would just pour through my past and any relationships and any experiences and think, where did I go wrong? What did I do to cause this? And that was really tough. You thought it was your fault. I was a very tender-hearted kid, and I genuinely wanted God to be proud of me. I wanted my parents to be proud of me. I just wanted to be good.
Yeah, and so at what point in the middle of, as I move a box away with my foot, at what point in high school and with all of this turmoil inside of you and this struggle and depression, when did you finally decide to open up and share this part of yourself with your family?
Well, they really started noticing the depression. I remember my mom jokingly saying, well, teenagers sleep a lot. Because every time I wasn't at church or school or dance, I would sleep. I was just constantly going to sleep. And, it was kind of a joke for a while. Well, she must be going through a growth spurt. Well, this is just what teenagers do. But it continued, and finally my parents were like, is there something more going on? You used to want to sit down and tell us about your day and, come down and have a snack with us, and now if you're not busy, you're sleeping. And just know we're here for you. You can talk to us about anything. And I felt guilty for hiding this from them. And so I just decided, we have a beautiful relationship, and I feel like they need to know this. I didn't know what I wanted to do with this information. I didn't know, am I going to be a lesbian? Am I going to be celibate? Am I going to continue fighting this? But whatever the case, I need help. I am completely over my head and in over my head with this. And, who better to hopefully help me with this than them?
So how did you decide, what, in what way did you just sit your parents down and say, I need to talk to you? How did you actually have this conversation with them?
Well, thankfully my parents were very much pro-therapy. Therapy was not a bad word in our house. And I knew that they knew of some good therapists. And so I said, you know what? You're right. I am feeling really down. I do have some heavy things kind of in my life right now. And if it's okay with you all, I would really like to tap into this resource. Could I go to this counselor that you know about? And hopefully I get some clarity, work through some things, and then I can work through it and I can talk with you all about it. And so that was the plan, that I was going to go and just talk to this counselor. And really, I wish I went into it just hoping that they would be like, you know what, you are gay and you need to say this and do this, this, and this, or you are not gay and the way not to be gay is do this, this, and this.
You wanted like a Maury Povich moment where the therapist would say, you are not gay.
Exactly.
Or there's actually a prescription that we write for this, and don't worry, we can fix this.
Exactly. So it seemed like the obvious place to turn because I couldn't hide the depression and the anxiety. It was clear that I was spiraling, and I didn't know how to put this into words. I didn't want to scare them. And I also, I knew that my understanding of homosexuality was naive. I had never been in a same-sex relationship. I didn't have same-sex, attracted friends. So I knew that I needed someone that knew more about, or so I thought, about LGBTQ culture to help me understand this better. So that's what I did. I went to this counselor for a few months and talked through everything and, realized, in fact, that I definitely was same-sex attracted and that it had been a part of me for as long as I could remember. And that confirmation led me to, gather up the courage to share that with my parents.
So when you spoke with the therapist, and I think that's super dope that your parents were open to that. I think therapy is something that all of us need. It's an important thing. We've all been through trauma. We all have things that we need help healing from, working through, correcting in ourselves. So that's really cool that they were open to that. So you go through therapy. You get to a point where you decide to be open 100% with your parents and honest about what you're experiencing and how you feel. What was your expectation going into doing that? How did you hope that your parents would respond? What did you think that they would say or do once you were honest with them?
I felt like, in a way, they were best friends of mine, just much older and wiser and cooler best friends. And this idyllic reaction in my mind was that they would give me a huge hug and they would say, yes, you're different, but we love you and we don't understand a lot about this either, but us together, we can figure this out, and no matter what, we love you and we support you. That was the beautiful, dream version of the reaction.
Right.
And then the other reaction, the other possibility in my mind was that I would finish the conversation, I would be handed a backpack with my stuff in it and shipped off somewhere. I don't know where I would be going, but it was either one or the other.
And you had that in your mind at like 15 years old, 16 years old, that was a possibility.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oof.
Yeah.
So the way that I did that was, I was so nervous, so nervous. So I wrote a Word document on the little public computer in our home, and it was just a few paragraphs, but it was, hey, Mom and Dad, I'm sorry that I scared you recently with some of my behaviors. I've just been really depressed and really anxious, and I need to share my heart with you all. I have same-sex attraction, and this is a big part of who I am. It's not something that I believe that I can ever really get rid of, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to be a lesbian. It just means that this is a part of me, and it's going to be, and I hope that you all can love me and support me with this. And then I put a link to, or I actually said, please minimize this and take a look at the website. And the website was something like Help Someone I Love is Gay. And it was about this gay son of these very religious parents and the journey that they went through, struggling to understand their son,
Wow.
Speaking to pastors, and then finally coming to the realization that their son was okay and he was gay and that they loved him anyway.
Okay, so the way that you decided to do that, I think as a kid, that took a lot of guts to do at all. On another note, that is such a 90s kid way to break news to your parents. Like, this is a really hard conversation. I'm going to write it in a Word document.
That's right.
I took typing in 7th grade, and I know ASDFGH, whatever it is. I'm going to put it in a Word document. So,
well, and I didn't feel like I could say it. I could not verbalize I am gay. That was the hardest sentence.
Well, I guess you might not have ever said that out loud. Even when you talk to your friends, you said, I have same-sex attraction. Wow.
I did that, and then I went to praise and worship practice.
Like straight away, right to church.
I came home, and there was a song by Plum. You remember the Christian artist Plum?
I don't actually.
It was a song called Cut, and it's I don't want to be afraid. I have to. It's talking about how you have to have pain to feel like you're alive, and it's just this song about having a burden and pain. And I remember putting that song on repeat the entire drive home in my little salsa red Pontiac Vibe. And pretty much, I'm lucky the speakers worked after that because I know that I had it maxed out.
Yeah.
Just listening to that song over and over and over to get up enough courage to go in the house whenever I got home from practice.
Just psyching yourself up because you didn't know what to expect. You didn't know what you were walking into. Hoping for the best, but also thinking that you might be sent away. Yeah.
It was going to be one or the other, and I was terrified.
So which one was it?
Well, I was not turned away. My bags weren't at the door when I got there, thankfully. I do remember the house was completely dark. When I drove up and parked, I sat there and listened to that song a couple more times. And we had 2 staircases in the house, and I went up the back staircase as quietly as possible. And again, it was almost as if everyone was asleep. Got up to my room, didn't turn the light on or anything, and just laid and face planted on my bed and just was as still as possible. Like, if I don't move or if I don't say anything, this will have never happened.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you're a toddler, you cover your eyes and think that you're hiding. That's basically what you were doing.
Exactly. That was my version.
Wow.
And, I heard a few minutes of laying up there. I remember hearing my dad's voice, "Chelsey, please come downstairs. We need to talk to you." those words. I can still feel that anxiety,
I
of that moment.
I feel it right now. Just like hearing you talk about it, I feel it right now. I can't imagine how it felt for you.
Yeah, the staircase that I, spent my childhood running up and down, skipping a step, being silly, that staircase felt huge. I felt like I was taking the steps all the way up to the Eiffel Tower. It felt like it took me forever to get downstairs to where they were.
And so your parents were both there. They had read the email. They were waiting on you. And what did they say?
Well, they started with "We love you," which was comforting to hear.
It's a good opener.
Yeah, that was that was good. That was a good icebreaker. And there were a lot of tears. I was in shock. I didn't know what to say. So I just kind of sat there very quietly. And they said, this isn't you, that this is something that we can fight and that we can beat. We didn't realize you were sick, but we're gonna fix it. We're going to start reparative therapy, which is also known as conversion therapy.
Wow.
We're going to get all the resources you need, and we are going to get you better. And then they said, do not tell anyone about this, no one. And if you have told anyone, you need to let us know now, and you need to let us know what you've said. And some things are going to change because your full focus has to be on getting better.
So you are 16 years old. They told you they loved you. They didn't send you away, which are positives.
Yes.
Those are good things. But the inner conflict that you've had also is not resolved because there's still this level of secrecy, and here you are trying to learn to accept yourself. And I imagine you can tell me how you felt, but I imagine that you felt like, here I finally shared this thing. I've worked myself up to it, and I'm still not fully accepted.
Yeah, that's how it felt. It was this huge moment of letting go of these secrets and really being vulnerable and transparent with them, and feeling like they heard me, but that they didn't really hear me. That they didn't view it as, this is a lifelong thing for our daughter, and this is a part of who she is. It felt almost like I said that I liked the Florida Seminoles when my parents were Gators, and they were like, well, don't worry, we'll get you more Gator gear, we'll go to a few more games, and you'll switch back to the right team. I don't know, it was very serious and it was very emotional, but it was like I told them I had a sickness, and they were going to line up the doctors and do anything they could, and I was going to get better.
And what did you think of that? Did you think that they know more than me and this is what's going to happen? Did you feel devastated? Did you feel angry? How did that make you feel?
Heartbroken. Sad. I felt a lot of shame and a lot of guilt. I saw how upset this made them. I saw how it was clear that they felt like they had failed, and that was not the case. They were phenomenal parents, and they had been everything that I needed and more. And it was just clear that this was taking a toll on them. Even just in one night, I feel like it aged them, and it broke them. And so, I thought this was going to be a happy moment of I feel free and I feel completely honest, and yay, our relationship's going to be deeper and better than it ever has been, to, oh my goodness, I have hurt them badly. And that was never, that never even crossed my mind that might be what happened.
Wow. And you are you're trying to share who you are. For you, this is a very real thing. This is something that you have been facing and battling and wrestling with and fighting and trying to get rid of, and finally realizing that you can't. That this has just been with you since as long as you can remember. But then you share it with your parents, and then you start this cycle all over again of, we're going to fight this, we're going to fix it, we're going to correct it. I can't imagine how discouraging and disheartening that must have been for you.
Yeah, I went into it thinking, well, I pushed past the shame and the guilt after a while and said, you know what, maybe they're on to something. We haven't actually done reparative therapy. Maybe this is what it takes, really consistent deprogramming. I need to be reconditioned, and maybe we really can pray the gay away and therapy the gay away. So, I genuinely tried to approach it as a challenge, and I didn't want them to hurt. I wanted to feel really close to them again, and so I was determined to try and be the best, the A student in therapy, and get the results that I needed to get and make them proud.
And you feel you have this need to make your parents proud. You're making excellent grades in school. You're not out drinking on the weekends. You're a model student. You yes ma'am and no sir. You behave. You're doing everything that you're supposed to do, but you still feel like a failure when it comes to pleasing your parents.
Yeah, that's tough. That really weighs on you. Whether it's personality or just raising. I genuinely wanted them to be proud and not to be ashamed. And I felt like I really had brought some shame into their lives. Wow.
And where do you think this this desire, this kind of perspective or outlook that you're sick, this is something that we can fix, we're going to get you help, is this coming from a place of, because of their religious beliefs or involvement in church, they had a genuine belief that a fear even that their child might go to hell? Is that where this is coming from, or where do you think this? Why do they have that perspective in this moment?
I believe that at this time, gay was still very taboo. It was not something that was really spoken about nearly as much as it is now, and so there was an image aspect that gay people are either really controversial celebrities, or they are in prison, or it's women that look like men and men that act like women. These very stereotypical kind of dramatized sorry, words are hard, dramatized version of the gay lifestyle.
Yeah.
That brings a lot of judgment and a lot of controversy and a lot of pain. I'm thinking about the AIDS panic, and how it seemed like that was a gay disease. And so I know that was in their mind of, our child is going to end up in cycles of abuse, and she could turn to drugs, and she could end up getting sick. And then there was also the aspect of our biblical teaching, our background says that it's an abomination to be gay. And abominations don't go to heaven. Abominations only have one place, and it's in hell. And so I think it was a lot of things. I feel for them now, especially being a parent, looking back. They feared for my life. They feared for my soul.
And if you have a genuine belief that your child is in danger of ending up in a real, literal hell, of course you would try to do anything in your power to prevent that from happening.
Yeah.
I think
they offered. I remember my dad saying, if this reparative therapy doesn't work, we'll go to somebody else. We'll go to Europe if we have to. We'll go to, week-long intensive camps if we have to. You can be homeschooled. Whatever we need to do, we'll do it. And I know that they meant it.
And you talk about, you use this term reparative therapy, aka conversion therapy, that in some places, in some states in our country is no longer even a legal thing. This is something that you experienced or that you worked through, that was a part of your life for some period of time as you tried to work this out in your own mind and in your own life, was it not?
Yes. I was a participant of conversion therapy, and it's all about deprogramming a person, reconditioning them, rewiring, so to speak, the way that you relate to members of the opposite sex. For many years, electric shock therapy was used in conversion therapy.
Wow.
That participants would be shown images of the same sex, and they would be shocked, and then they would be shown images of the opposite sex, and they would be soothed, and they would be congratulated and rewarded. And thankfully, that was not a part of my conversion therapy, but a lot of those same ideas were used. You're trying to take any pleasure that could be received from the same sex and move it over to the opposite sex.
I can't even imagine what that must have been like for somebody your age. How did that affect your thinking? How did that affect your view of yourself? What effect did that type of therapy have on you as a person?
It caused a lot more guilt and shame. There was an assignment that I had. I would have homework assignments and journal assignments, and one of them was to walk around the mall, and I needed to jot down any time that I felt attracted to the same sex, what it was about them, and I needed to try and get to the bottom of what it was that was leading me to feel that way, and I really needed to make an effort to notice a lot of opposite sex people, and I needed to see, was there a part of me that could be attracted to them? If I wasn't, should I be? Weren't there some things about them that maybe I was just not clearly seeing? And I remember feeling really guilty because it was a chore. I was noticing one woman after another because, that was my assignment. And I remember I noticed one of the guys, and I got in trouble. The reason this guy stood out to me was he had long, beautiful hair. And everything that I liked about him was very feminine.
Oh, man.
And so I failed the assignment, which was not what I wanted to do. But
and that was new to you, to fail homework as well. You were not used to failing homework.
No, and I really was trying. I really, really tried, but my answers just were not what they needed to be. At least in the beginning, I was trying to be really genuine and answer them the way that I really felt, and that did not show progress. So it wasn't acceptable.
So how long were you a part of such therapy, and at what point did things kind of switch for you from this is something that I'm taking very, very seriously, and I'm trying to do to the best of my abilities? Was there a period where it switched from that to this just isn't something that is effective and I just need to get through it?
Yeah, so it was on and off for 2 to 3 years.
Wow.
And, sometimes it was really consistent and it was once or twice a week. And other times, we would take a break and I would go once a month. So it really fluctuated depending on, what my therapist felt was appropriate for that time. I felt terrible that my parents were having to pay for this, for one. And they were having to drive me an hour to go to this therapist. They were having to sit in the waiting room, and I could just tell that it was having an impact on them. Knowing that I was in therapy meant that I was still struggling with this. And I just, after a while, wanted to move past it.
Sure.
I was tired of the distance. I was tired of the anxiety. the nerves that it was clear that they were feeling and that I was feeling. And so I just decided, I've got to find a way to end this. I've got to move forward. And, my therapist at this point had said, Chelsey, you've got it bad. He didn't use those words, but, same-sex attraction is very strong in you. And this is not something that I believe, this is him talking, that I believe that you can ever fully recover from. But you know what you need to do, to go to heaven and to have the ministry that you want to have and the relationship with your family that you want to have. Celibacy is the answer, and we'll work on this for as long as you want to, but I'm not sure how much straighter we can get you.
Wow. And this was something that was still, at this point, a family secret, was it not?
Yes. Yeah, I hadn't, my three closest friends, one other friend that I knew was struggling with same-sex attraction, and those are the only people that knew.
And what, during this time when you're going to this therapy, you had been honest with your parents, what effect did this whole thing have on your relationship with your parents?
Well, I feel like they tried to be as close and supportive as they could, but it was very painful for them. They were afraid to say the wrong thing. They were afraid to enable me or encourage me in this quote-unquote bad habit. They walked on eggshells around me, and I could just tell they were always on edge. They were nervous. They were scared. They were sad. They felt like their view of my future, their beautiful love story for me someday, and the idea of me giving them grandchildren and all that, I feel like they had to mourn that loss.
Wow.
And I felt like I watched them mourn my future, as crazy as that sounds. And so it was just very somber. It was very quiet. My home was a lot more quiet. For years my dad would listen to CDs of me singing just all the time. He was my biggest fan. And I remember after coming out to them, the CDs were put away. And instead of hearing, and talking about my music and things, those weren't played anymore. Those weren't heard anymore. There was not more singing in churches. All of this was kind of put on hold. Having friends over, that was put on hold. Babysitting, that was put on hold. It felt like everything just slowed way down, and there was just kind of this sense of heaviness.
Yeah.
It was different than the depression before, but it was a very kind of depressive kind of mood that covered everything.
Wow. It doesn't sound crazy. It does sound sad, and it sounds like there was a period of time where even if your parents were doing what they knew to do or were making effort and were still letting you know that they were there and they cared about you, they also were keeping you at arm's length because they didn't know what to do with this situation.
Yeah. I remember, coming home and being like, I'd like to talk to you all about what I learned in therapy today, or, I'm reading this new ex-gay book, and them trying their hardest to be supportive, but it very quickly changing the subject or just getting to the end of what I needed to say and being like, so anyways, did you take notes during the sermon today? Just doing their best to continually direct me back to God or Christ-like or something like that. Because the idea of me being gay, even me fighting it, was very uncomfortable for them.
Yeah. And, in hearing you talk about this, even now, knowing that you're someone that is happy and that has a beautiful life and has a happy marriage and is a wonderful mother and has a successful career, even now, hearing you start to share your story and what you went through as a child, it's it's very hard to think about a kid carrying around that weight. And even in your retelling of it, you're so focused on the feelings of everybody around you and their comfortability and their what they were going through. And I think it speaks to who you are as a person. But I just imagine what you must have been going through and how hard it must have been for you. And it doesn't seem like there were enough people who were concerned with that.
Yeah. It's funny. Something I hadn't told you before was, so whenever I was in conversion therapy, I remember feeling really alone, and I was encouraged to write about therapy in a journal. And so I actually did some research and found a lesbian woman that made custom journals. And
I bet there was some banging journals.
My parents didn't know this about her, of course. But I asked my parents if for my birthday and for therapy, if I could have a custom journal made. And so I had this journal made, and I carried this to therapy with me, and I used it for my homework. And in this weird way, not really knowing this person, but just conversing with this person about what I wanted my journal to be like, and thanking them. And because it was a very in-depth process. I mean, you chose the leather, you chose the type of paper, all these different things. And knowing that this person was a lesbian made me feel like I wasn't so alone. And so that journal for a while felt like my only friend. And I actually still have that journal. It is a very, very special item to me. And the journal maker, years later, I actually shared my story with her, and now we are very good friends.
No kidding.
Yeah, I actually spoke with her just yesterday.
Wow.
And so I felt very alone, and even at that time was just seeking and searching for some sense of comfort and some sense of relationship. Not romantic, not anything like that, but just someone to say, you know what, kid? I see you. I see that you're trying and you're okay. And there was just something about seeing this adult that had a job, that had a family, that was healthy and was like going on adventures and vacations, that no matter what happened, that I could make it to that point.
Wow. And this is a time where there's a lot of loneliness for you for years. And even though you're involved in a lot of things and you're around a lot of people, you're very active in your church, really you're looking for a place to belong. You're looking for people that will see you. And I feel like that's something that that the church gets wrong too often, and not even just with LGBTQ people or situations, but if you look at the model of a lot of churches, there's sort of this underlying attitude or this perspective of there's those of us who are in and who belong and who are accepted, and then there's people that aren't. And if you want to go from being someone who's on the outside and who's not accepted to being someone on the inside, you first have to change your beliefs and you have to change your behaviors, and then we'll accept you. Then you'll become one of us. And I look at Scripture and I see the opposite from Jesus. I see that Jesus started with acceptance. He started by giving people a place to belong, and then allowing their beliefs and their behaviors to work themselves out or to be corrected over time. And I think of the damage that is done to so many young people, especially when they're taught that parts of who they are, or their identity, or things that they're struggling with, or beliefs that they hold, or trauma that they've been through, that those things somehow keep them from being able to come to God. It's sad. It's a sad thing.
It is. It really is.
So you are in high school, you've come out to your family, you've been through years of conversion therapy. Even your therapist at a certain point kind of says, well, this is sort of just in you and who you are. Mm-hmm. You leave therapy. What happens next in your life and in your journey?
All right. So, I said the only way I'm going to get out of conversion therapy is we've got to have some sort of closure. So I remember acting like I had a light bulb moment and telling the therapist, you know what, you've taught me all these theories about why a person feels same-sex attraction and what they need to do to, to continually fight those and to have a good Christian, holy life. And I think I'm ready. I think I can explain why I'm gay and what I need to do to not give in to that. And I think I'm ready to present all of this to my family. And so, presented those things to the therapist, and the therapist said, I'm so proud of you. I actually remember him writing me an email after it and saying, you were never that good at being bad. And that line always sticks with me. So, apparently being gay was a bad thing. Just seeing it in writing, there was something about that.
Yeah.
Brought my parents in, and, I was encouraged to explain to them, what it was that made me gay and what my plan was to continue fighting this. And, letting them know that maybe if I fought it long enough that, someday maybe I could be straight. Just throwing that in there, hoping that, as close to straight as I can get, hopefully our relationship will improve. And so I was allowed to have same-sex friends over. I was allowed to resume babysitting. It was like the switch was turned. We would go, my friends and I would go out in large groups, and, I would purposely get close to certain guys to see if, maybe I just need to put myself back out there. I need to date some more. I'm older. I don't feel attracted to these people, but that doesn't mean that, I couldn't find some sort of companionship. So, just tried to figure out what it was that people needed me to be and embrace that, and just hope that eventually my heart and my mind got in line.
You're trying to fake it till you made it.
Yeah. And I did. I dated a few different guys very seriously. I had one that was picking out rings, and, one that was talking about what our first home would look like and how many kids we would have. And, I really put myself in those relationships as wholeheartedly as I could. But it would always get to a point where we would start having those tough conversations about our heart and about our mind. And it was always clear that I didn't have that connection with them, and that this was never going to be fair to them, and it was never going to feel right for me either. And so all of those relationships ended. And so at that point, I just decided, well, I'm going to continue my college education. I'm going to study religion. And, if I can stick close to God through all of this and, literally be studying the Bible for my career, then maybe I can be a nun, and that'll keep me from being gay, or, some sort of ministry, because it just felt like my only option, that it was either do that and have my loved ones, or give in to being gay and be very lonely and end up heartbroken and hurt and, all those other sad things that I believed would happen.
You literally actually really contemplated at the end of your high school career becoming a nun as a way to solve this.
Yep. I Googled it. I Googled, do you have to be Catholic to be a nun? I remember Googling that.
Do you have to be Catholic?
Well, most nuns are Catholic, but there are some that aren't. But at this point, I was like, you know what? I think God will forgive me because, again, being raised believing that, Catholics and Christians were different.
Right.
Currently, that was what I believed. And so I kept thinking, well, surely God would rather me be Catholic than gay.
Wow.
And,
and you realize as an adult with a fully formed brain, you realize now how extreme that thinking was that, well, maybe I'll just become a nun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. At the time, though, it felt like the most reasonable thing to do because I really believed that if I wasn't held in constant accountability, like being surrounded by nuns and the Bible, that I could accidentally slip up and, end up in a chariot speeding toward hell. So that was what I felt like I was going to have to do.
That's wild.
Yeah, it is. I look back on it. My wife still laughs because I still love nun movies, and I have no regrets. But I do really love a good nun movie.
I love Sister Act. Whoopi Goldberg is terrific in those films. Those are good.
I agree.
Those are good movies. I love them to this day. So you did not become a nun.
I didn't. No.
But you did go to a Christian college. Tell me about that decision and what you were intending when you decided it.
So the last boyfriend that I had in my hometown, I was in junior college, and I had decided after one heartbreak after another that this was going to be my last try at being in a heterosexual long-term relationship. I wanted it to work so badly. And I thought that maybe it could. This guy seemed really interested. He was really nice. My parents liked him, all that kind of stuff. And he came to me and said, no matter how much you and I want this to work, I can tell your heart's not in it. And that was devastating because it was true. Despite wanting it to be a great relationship, it could never be. And so we broke it off, and I felt the depression spiral coming back because that, in my mind, felt like the end of that relationship felt like closing the possibility of ever having a relationship that my parents would be proud of.
Wow.
And so I was working on the college campus, and I was in the computer lab for one of my education courses, and I Googled Christian colleges near me. And so it brought up all the colleges in Florida, I think Georgia and Alabama. And I narrowed it down to 2, literally sitting there. And I saw one was a Christian women's college, and I laughed when I saw how much the tuition was. But I said, you know what, I'm going to send these 2 to my parents, see if, they will also think it's funny or if they would be up for it, because I can't be here. Being here reminds me that I failed, and I need a change of scenery, and I need to be fully immersed in religion, in growth, because this is, my future's not looking too hot. And I sent them the information about the 2 colleges. They said, let's schedule visits, let's go look. And I did end up following through and going to this Christian women's college.
So to get away from being gay, you ran away to an all-girls school.
I know. As a fully formed adult, I get that was crazy. But in my mind, so one of the things that you learn in conversion therapy is that you are really rare as a person with same-sex attraction. That if you look around you and you think that there are gay people, 9 times out of 10, you are just projecting your same-sex attraction onto those people.
Wow.
So I believed that, I wanted to spend my life around women. So what better way than being around really godly women that would be, completely biblical and holy and what I needed to strive to be. And so, looking back, it almost seems like a joke. But at the time, I felt like these would be the absolute best women to hold me accountable.
This was your second best option to becoming a nun.
Pretty much, yeah.
The
Give
same,
it a try.
same,
If I'm going
same
to be
thinking.
a nun, well, I'm thinking 2 years at a women's college should show me if I can really handle that.
So you go to college, still a family secret, still wanting to overcome this, still struggling. What was it like for you to go to a conservative Christian college? What was it like for you to go to an all-girls school? How did you continue to grow and process and understand even your own self?
Well, I continually encountered gay women, but I had been very well conditioned to remind myself that they were not gay, that it was me making them gay with my mind, like thinking that they were. And so I fully believed that I was the only gay person on campus.
Wow. You really thought that?
Yeah. I really believed that I was it because that's what I had been taught in therapy for so long.
Wow.
And so, I was almost told that it was selfish and it was toxic, to put gayness on other people. And so it was like a big no-no to me.
Do you have that power to put gayness on other people?
Apparently, I have powers that I didn't even realize.
So that therapy was to recondition you, and it did not recondition your attraction, but in a way it really did recondition your thinking and even your concept of yourself, and it was still affecting you years later. Definitely.
I told a therapist a couple years ago that I had PTSD due to therapy, and she laughed and said, "Was it that bad?" And I explained what kind of therapy it was, and she said, "I'm sorry I laughed. You are completely right. That would give you PTSD." And so that was something I literally had to work through in therapy. Wow. Therapy.
Wow. Work through therapy in therapy. Yeah.
Yeah. So it definitely stayed with me. So I fully immersed myself in my classes, in chapel, in the mission projects. I went to Brazil on a mission trip with my college. Any of the community outreach, any of the Bible classes. I actually changed majors so I could be a religious studies major. Anything that I could do within that Christian culture, I wanted to do. And that went pretty well. I made some good friends, but I would always get right up to the point of being really close with them, and then I would distance myself because that one thing about me, there was so much shame. Even though I wasn't an out lesbian woman, I felt so guilty for having this same-sex attraction. I felt like, it would put a scarlet letter on me. And that it would, news would travel, and then before I knew it, I would be, treated like I had some horrible contagious disease, or that people would be afraid to be around me. That was one of my biggest fears was, what if these girls don't want to come in my dorm room because they worry I'll jump on them? My biggest fear was my roommate finding out because I heard something about a gay person being mentioned in passing, and she freaked out and said, "Oh my gosh, I would die." And, hearing stuff like that, it just, I just kept getting deeper and deeper in that Narnia closet.
And I imagine you were just a very anxious person all the time.
Yeah, I was constantly on edge. Like, I was afraid that what if I hugged a girl too long? If, I was walking by a girl, if I accidentally brushed her hand, it was like this really, this quick need to jerk my hand back and put it in my pocket. I was constantly thinking about everything I said and I did in an effort to not somehow let everyone know that I was gay.
Did you like yourself at this period in your life?
Yes and no. When I was in my religion classes, I hated myself because it was like a constant reminder that I couldn't reach the standard that I needed to, that I would never really truly be a good Christian. But when I was away from those classes and, I was maybe on my own walking around campus or just sitting out in nature or, watching a movie that had a gay character or writing in my journal that I'd had in conversion therapy, I would feel a little glimmer of, you know what, Chelsey, you're not so bad. And so it was very jarring, but it was kind of like whiplash. In class, feel horrible. Out of class, feel a little better. Walking around campus, feel okay. Sitting with girls in my classes, not feeling too good.
So did you have any type of social life during this time?
I was a social butterfly, or an antisocial butterfly was what someone called me in high school. I was very friendly to everyone, but I did not seek out social interaction. So, everyone knew my name. I knew their name. We were friends. I would talk to people in my classes. I would talk to whoever I sat with in the dining hall, but I was not going to ask people, hey, what are y'all doing tonight? Let's go out.
Right.
I was not going to make plans. I wasn't going to go to sporting events. If people crossed my path when I was doing my obligations as a college student, then I was very friendly. But I was not going to go past that for any reason because that was just not comfortable for me.
You didn't have the freedom to be a full person.
Yeah. I mean, most of my friends were wanting to go on double dates, triple dates, group dates with the male cadets down the road at the other college. And I knew that was not a possibility for me because I had told myself, you're not going to put yourself in this position to get heartbroken again. And so I was determined we're not going to pretend date. We're not going to get close to these guys because we know how it ends.
And you had learned in therapy that you were the only one, that nobody else was like you. No one would understand. No one would accept you. So was representation a big thing for you when you did see television shows or movies or celebrities that were gay? Was that something that was actually like a sense of solace or encouragement for you?
Oh my goodness, yes. I held on to any little bit of gay anything that I could find. I remember finding a Rosie O'Donnell book in a bookstore and being with one of my friends from high school and buying that Rosie O'Donnell book and then switching bags with her. So in case my family asked what I bought, they wouldn't see that book. And like hiding that book and having it. And there wasn't really anything gay in it, but it was a lesbian woman that wrote the book.
Did you feel like you were trying to keep a crime from being solved at all times? That you were just like guilty of the secret thing that you were hiding?
Yeah, it was, I would get super excited if I saw a glimpse of Ellen DeGeneres on the TV. Or, I saw someone that, I heard a Melissa Etheridge song. Any of these moments, I would get like this sense of glee and this adrenaline rush, and then I would instantly feel guilty. And so it was just running from one high to another, trying to find that little feeling of acceptance, because it was in those moments that I felt heard and I felt seen, and I needed that so badly.
Yeah, and we all do. I mean, it's a part of the shared human experience to desire to be seen. And no matter where you're at or what you're struggling with or what you're going through, it's so important to know that you are not the only person dealing with that.
And that is for sure.
And you weren't, but you felt like you were.
Yes, that's right. So
what happened in college? This is still very much an inward thing and very much a struggle and a battle, a secret in your family. What happened to get you from that place to a place where you were okay with who you were enough and felt confident enough to share who you were and how you felt with those around you?
Well, I feel like I was as close to having a nervous breakdown as I've ever gotten. I was making really good grades. I had a great roommate. Everything really should have been wonderful in my life. I had friends that felt like I was their super best close friend, but I didn't feel that deep connection with them like they felt with me. And so I remember sitting in my college dorm room and being completely zoned out to everything around me and feeling everything get dark and everything get quiet, almost like I was about to pass out, because I was just my mind and my heart, everything felt like it was shutting down. I felt the depression spiral coming. Because no matter how much I threw myself into everything that I was supposed to, my sadness just kept compounding and my sense of isolation just kept growing, and I didn't feel like I could tell anyone about it. And so I got in this really dark space, literally all in one evening in my dorm room, and just put my head in my hands. And I remember thinking, I don't want to be here. I don't want to live like this. Either I need to have someone in my life to love me and that I can love, and it be okay with you, talking to God, or I need major help with living celibate and not being this depressed. Because if this is what celibacy is going to be like, I don't want to do it. I can't do it. I just want to quit while I'm ahead. And,
as in life?
Yeah. I mean, I just felt hopeless. I needed something major. I needed either some sort of supernatural comfort to help me be celibate and feel, fully whole, or I needed God to wave a woman in front of me and say, you can be with this person. It's okay. I love you anyway. I needed one or the other, and I needed it to be very clear because I was just too tired and too depressed and everything else to really soul search anymore. I was to that point, like, hey, I've tried and I'm done. So, God, if I'm supposed to turn left, I need you to hold up a sign that says left. And if I'm supposed to turn right, please hold up a sign that says right.
And you were holding the entire world at arm's length because you were so afraid to make a mistake or to mess up.
Yeah, I was terrified. I really believed it was like in the cartoon where the floor is all of a sudden under you turns into a trap door and straight to hell, And I know that sounds crazy now, but at the time it felt so real and it felt so dangerously close to my decisions.
That's heavy.
Yeah, it was. It's heavy talking about it, thinking about it,
Yeah.
So I remember sleeping that night. My my poor roommate was like, man, something's wrong with Chelsey. And we both agreed we just needed to go to sleep. So she went to sleep, I went to sleep. And I remember waking up the next day and being like, all right, God, either I've got a wife or I've got, a life of celibacy. Show me which one you want me to have. And, I did end up meeting my wife at this college. I did not go into the relationship with her in any way romantically. We became really good friends. And, after becoming good friends, she confided in me that she was in fact gay. And I thought that this was April Fool's or that...
that's tomorrow.
I had heard her wrong, but she actually had experienced what I had. And that was just, that blew my mind.
So she had been through a lot of the same trauma, a lot of the same upbringing, had a very much a shared experience, and you guys had become close friends. And so she's, in her mind, she's confiding in a friend and probably very afraid and very timid.
Yeah.
She had no idea that you were gay.
Yeah, she didn't. I could tell she was terrified to tell me. I mean, with tears in her eyes and, having a hard time getting the words out. She said, please don't judge me, but I need you to know this, that, I have been with women, that my relationships are with women, and I don't know what that means for my future, but please don't be afraid of me,
Wow.
And I remember feeling so seen and so heard, and looking at her and saying, okay, well, first off, you don't have to worry about being judged.
Yeah.
And, us both laughing, and then kind of giving her a snippet of my story and saying, I don't know what the future holds for me either, but just know you have a forever companion in me, whether that's we're friends for the rest of our lives, whether that's whatever it is. I said, if you go off and get married someday, just know I'll always be a friend that you can depend on, and that I do really care about you, because I, in this moment, felt a deeper connection to her than I had with anyone in my entire life.
Well, and you knew what she had been
that was
through.
Incredible.
Yeah, you understood what she had been through. I imagine that moment. She's like, "Hey, please don't judge me," and you're like, "Boy, do I have news for you."
Yeah, it was incredible. It was like, I don't know, I could hear for the first time. I could see for the first time. Like everything had just been, everything changed in that moment. And I felt extremely protective of this woman. I felt so much compassion for this woman. And I just wanted to give her a huge hug. And I did. That was probably the longest hug I've ever had. And it was completely friendly and, nothing romantic about it.
Right.
But I felt like my heart had finally been seen and understood.
Wow.
And I was determined to protect that however I could.
And I think that's how, with any relationship, that's how things should, hopefully things begin with a friendship, right? Like that's what we all want. And I know when my wife and I met, I was very intent on dating her, and she wasn't so sure about me at first. And it got to a point where we were actually in the drive-thru of McDonald's, and we were getting some food to take back to the rest of our friend group. And I reached over, we were in my little S10 pickup, I reached over and held her hand. And she just looked down like, what are you doing? And yeah, and it was kind of awkward for a second. And she was like, what are we? And I was like, what? And she said, what are we? And I said, we're friends. And she said, friends don't hold hands, Wes. And I was like, oh, yeah. So I told her, I was like, well, okay, I don't want to be your friend. I want to date you. And until I know that is not possible, I will keep trying. And
yeah, exactly.
But, you want to have that friendship first, and you want to have that that understanding of each other as an appreciation for each other as a person. That's a good foundation. So you guys are friends. You have somebody that understands what you've been through. Did it go straight from being a friend and having this confidant to now I feel seen, and so I can be open with everyone I'm around about who I am and about this part of me? Or was there still a period of time where it was still a secret, but there's just somebody else that knows now?
Oh, goodness, no. I didn't feel like others could know. What's funny is people did realize that we had a special bond just by how she reacted to me and how she acted around me. She was the captain of her volleyball and tennis team. She was a very strong presence, a very she was in a lot of leadership positions, and so she was pretty tough, especially on her athletes. And I remember having a headache one day in her dorm room, and I had homework, and I needed to read a chapter, and my head hurt so bad that I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to go to sleep. Because there's no way I can get this done because I can't even see straight. And I remember her saying, let me go get you some medicine. She was going to have to go down a few flights of stairs to her room to get some medicine. And she said, and I'll read the chapter out loud to you. And I remember a few of her volleyball players were in there, and they said, "Oh my gosh, who is this? And where did they come from? Like, what kind of spell does Chelsey have you under?"
So
Because that
they
was
knew.
just not the way that she handled things. But there was this tenderness that our relationship brought out in her. And it was just very clear to those around us. They never saw a kiss. They never saw a hand held, anything like that. But they realized that we did, in fact, have a very special, deep relationship.
So at what point did you guys decide, or how did you begin to be open about your relationship, or even share it with your family? How did that come about?
So I realized that I could not live without her, and she felt the same way. I realized that the relationship that we had brought me so much happiness, and I just could not imagine how that could be as sinful as I had been raised believing. And she felt the same way. And so, we decided, you know what, let's date. Let's see what this is like. You know what, we'll, just like we would in high school, let's just date. Let's go on dates. Let's go to dinner. Let's talk about our priorities, our beliefs, all those things. And so we did that for a while, and we had a break from school, and so we wrote back and forth on Facebook. And I wrote a message to her about how much I truly enjoyed dating her, and how, I could see my future in her eyes, that I could imagine us years from now having a family and having a home, and how I hoped that didn't scare her, but that I had never felt that way before, and it was just right there. And unfortunately, she did not log out of her account. We have all made that mistake.
Oh, yes.
And her messages were right out there for a family member to see. And so we had been together for 3 months at this point, and all of a sudden our relationship was public to her family. And we were immediately faced with a decision. Her family came to her and said, "This is unacceptable. This is what the Bible says. We'll transfer you schools if you don't end this." So she came to me, or she called me, because we were long distance because of being a break from school. And she said, we've got some decisions to make. It's clear that this is not going to be okay by my family. From what I've learned about your experience, it's not going to be okay with yours. And so we've got to decide, is this really what we want? Because if we do, we've got to be ready, because all hell's going to break loose. So we did. We took about a week, didn't talk to each other or anything, just to kind of soul search and really figure out what we wanted to do. And at the end of that week, we came back together and said, "This is what I want, and if I lose everything and everyone in the process, it's worth it."
It's a big decision.
Oh, looking back on that now, if somebody came to me and said, "I met someone, we've been together 3 months, and I am willing to lose everything for them," it would be very difficult to encourage them.
Yeah, for sure.
I actually had a cousin that I hardly ever spoke to reach out to me just to say, "Hey, I support you, but you need to be really sure that this is what you want to do, because this is a huge decision."
Yeah, and it was.
Yeah, it was. And do I regret it? No. We next month we will have been together 12 years. So it was the right decision, but it was huge.
And I'm sure it was difficult. At what point? So you guys decide this. I mean, what were the ramifications of that decision? Did your families cut you off, or was there hardship? Were you on your own after that? What was it like after deciding to stay together no matter what?
Yeah, it was tough. There were a lot of ramifications. My wife wrote a beautiful coming out letter, just completely pouring her heart out to her family. And unfortunately, that was shared with most of the faculty and staff at the Christian college we were at. And so we went from being, kind of under the radar, just everyday students, to being on everyone's radar. It was against the rules to be outwardly gay at our college, and it was made very clear publicly in chapel services and things that any outward gay behavior would not be tolerated and that you would be expelled. And so we lived with that fear, and also the fear of her family outing me to my family. Because I had very quietly and gracefully gone back into the closet. And so the idea of being forced back out by someone else was very scary for me.
You had worked very hard to kind of learn how to toe the line with your family to keep the peace.
Exactly. And so, we had been able to smooth things over a few times, as just be friends in the eyes of others. But eventually it was just evident that, the way that she looked at me, the way that we spoke to one another, just the bond that we had, it was clear that it was more than a friendship. And so I didn't want anyone to tell my parents but me. Because I felt, the least I can do is be the bringer of this news. It is my truth, so I'm going to be the one to share it. And so we did. We told both sides, this is us. At this point, we had been together 6 months, and both wrote that, we didn't expect financial support. We weren't saying that they had to throw us a couple's party or, be at our wedding or anything like that, but that we were very serious about this relationship and hoped that someday they could come to love and support our union. And that was not the response we received. Bailey's car was taken from her. Financial support was cut off. I was pretty much told that the money was stopping and that I was on my own. And so we weren't sure what the future looked like. We both kind of planned to drop out of school and to work and then go back to school eventually. Thankfully, with a lot of part-time jobs and with scholarships and things, we were able to finish school. But it was very up in the air for a while. On school breaks, our dorms would close. There was no family to go home to. So we really had to get to know our safe resources. We tapped into the larger public universities and their different LGBTQ organizations and found safe places and safe people that we could be sheltered with, whenever we didn't have a place to go. And that was the honeymoon period of our relationship. It was not a honeymoon at all.
And this, you guys are still not, you're still not really adults.
No.
You're still kids who are figuring out life. And because of the love that you share between each other, you're kind of thrown into the deep end, so to speak, and just have to figure out what real life is and how to manage things completely on your own.
Yeah. We joke that our parent was Google in the beginning. That the first home that we had, we had to Google how to rent an apartment. What does a lease look like? How to turn on utilities? How to open up an account with a cell phone?
The things that you would normally just pick up the phone and call mom or dad.
Yeah. How to get into grad school. All these different things that you would normally ask a family member. That wasn't an option. And so we lovingly referred to Google as Mama Google, and would get on there and find out what we could and try and reach out to those LGBT-friendly resources. And, we did all those different milestones together. And I feel like it can either destroy your relationship or it can bring you together and make you stronger. And I am so very thankful that it made us stronger.
For sure. And so at this point, you guys you're out, you're together, you're living authentically as yourselves, but you're also on your own. You're finding support wherever you can. You're working very hard. You're scratching and clawing just to survive, just to meet basic needs.
Yeah.
What did you learn about yourself during that period?
I learned that I was a lot stronger than I ever realized. I remember being so afraid that, actually embracing a gay identity, being a gay woman, that I was going to self-combust, that the world around me was going to explode, that, I was going to immediately pretty much die. That was the anxiety, the level of anxiety that I had. And realizing that, yes, it was scary, but that it was also beautiful and freeing, and that I'd never felt so whole and authentic, and that the love that we had was enough to push us to succeed. We were so determined to not fail because the love that we had was strong, and it was something we believed in, and we were going to succeed or we were going to die trying. And so I feel like we both really learned just how strong we were, that yes, you can go to school, 20 hours a week and work 50 hours a week, and you can do it. If that's what you've got to do, you can do it. And we both did that, and it was hard, but we did it, and look at where we are now. It still amazes me.
Yeah. And you guys are married. What was that like, deciding to get married? How did you guys even do that?
So it was not legal in Alabama. Whenever we first got together, we were both very traditional. We didn't want to live together until we were married. And no one would have believed that, but it was true. I was not going to have sex before I was married. I was not going to live with someone before I was married. And so we found an Episcopal priest that blessed our union privately. And since it wasn't legal in Alabama, that was as good as we could do anyways. And so before we moved in together, that was the step that we took. And as soon as we were financially able, we drove 13 and a half hours to Muscatine, Iowa.
Iowa. Shout out to our 3 listeners from Muscatine, Iowa.
Yes, all you Muscatinians. The Pearl, I think, is what they're known for.
The Pearl.
Something, yeah, the Pearls of Muscatine.
You guys drove 13 hours to Iowa.
Yeah, so we could legally get married and at least be federally recognized.
And this was 12 years ago. This wasn't 1965. This wasn't in the 70s. This was 12 years ago.
Yeah, it was. It was only legal in a handful of states, maybe 5-7 states, and Iowa was one that we could drive to. So we went to the courthouse, got a magistrate, stayed up there. I think we had to be up there for 48 hours for everything to be finalized. And then we drove back home. We joked that we stayed in a hotel that even the roaches were too good for. We had one dog, and we actually brought her with us because we couldn't afford to board her.
Was the dog the only witness to the wedding?
You know what's crazy is we actually met our witnesses. We had money to go out to eat once or twice. And so we went to this diner, which was next to the hotel that night. And we mentioned to the waitress that we were there to get married. And she said, "Oh, my goodness, you're both getting married tomorrow?" And we were like, "To each other." And we were so scared. But she started crying and thought it was amazing and gave us a hug. and said, "Who's here for your wedding?" And we said, "We don't have anybody. We need witnesses. Where can we find witnesses?" And she said, "My boyfriend and I would love to be your witnesses."
Wow.
And so our waitress that night, at her and her big burly construction doing husband, who I really immediately saw and was afraid of because I thought he was going to be, anti-gay. I was wrong. Were our witnesses the next day.
Wow.
And so that was, it was just a beautiful thing. And she came to us afterwards. We asked her, we said, "Thank you so much for doing this. Why did you do this?" And she said that her aunt was a lesbian and had been one of the first lesbian women in their state to adopt a child. And they had always been inspired by her and admired her for her courage. And they felt like it was a way to thank her by being there for us.
Wow. That's
that
very
was
meaningful.
really special. And
Yeah.
it really confirmed a lot for me that, you know what, there's a lot more of us out there, and we deserve to be here. We deserve this marriage, and we're going to be all right.
So you guys had I'm sure you always conceptualize a wedding differently, and imagine family and all the things that typically come with a wedding, but you still had someone there that was there for you and that supported you. You go back home to a life where you guys are now newlyweds. You don't have tons of support. What is the relationship with your families like at this time? Are they still, do they find out that you guys are married? Are they at all, is there any part of your families that are supportive? Do you have a relationship with them at this time?
At this time, we did not. We both did send a message to our families letting them know that we were going to be getting married and that we weren't asking for any support, but that we wanted them to know that they were welcome to be a part if they would like to. And I remember my parents just responded with no thank you. And I think Bailey's parents just didn't respond. And so we took that as, okay, it's just us. We did both have a couple family members that had made a point to be supportive as much as they could. They didn't feel that they could financially be supportive or really outwardly be supportive because they didn't want to be, they didn't want it to be an us or them kind of thing.
Right.
But we did both have a few family members that reached out and were like, hey, we're happy for you. And, we're here. We can't do a lot, but we're here. And that meant a lot, just a message of, we're happy for you was huge. That was, that's what everybody wants when they find the love of their life.
Yeah. And so what happened, what are things like now with your families? Do you guys have a relationship with your families? Have you found togetherness? Are you all on the same page? Has there been healing in those relationships? What's that like today?
There's been so much healing, Wesley. I really did not think that we would ever get to the point that we are now. I talk to my parents a few times a week on the phone. They do live 6 or so hours from me, so I only get to see them a few times a year. But, the relationship that we have with both sides, it was a roller coaster ride for a long time. But we have a son now. We've been married for 12 years. It's clearly not a phase. Both sides have been around us as a family and as a unit enough to realize that what we have is genuine and that there's no sort of twistedness or abuse or anything going on. I think we have desensitized them to, a lot of the gay misconceptions out there, that LGBT relationships are unhealthy and, that there's all these things going on that are really perverse. Once you get to know us and spend time with us, you realize that we are extremely boring. My favorite thing to do is jigsaw puzzles. And I usually go to sleep at 9:00 every night.
Just not tonight. Thank you, by the way.
And we go to baseball games and watch our little boy play baseball, I having our son, we got into foster care. We started doing foster care for teens because we really felt like we needed extra support during those years and wanted to provide that the best that we could. And we did that, and then we took a break from assisting teens and said, I don't know if we're ever meant to be parents, but we told the social workers, if you ever have a young child that needs a home, we would love to love a younger child and see how that goes. And we met our son, and 3 years later, we're able to adopt him, and now he's been with us almost 6 years.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
And now he has grandparents, and both sets of parents are, they are grandma and grandpa and grams and pops, and that's been a beautiful thing. Seeing them love him, and in turn see our family as what it is, a family.
And I think for me, being someone that knew you as a child and that is getting to know you again as an adult, something that amazes me is your capacity for forgiveness. We've talked about a lot of it on air tonight. A lot of it we talked about in a phone conversation that will stay in that conversation. But you and your wife have been through a lot. You've experienced a lot of trauma, a lot of hardship, a lot of difficulty within your families. And to see that you both hung in there long enough, and that you both allowed enough space, and that you set healthy boundaries, and that you worked at it for such a long time that now your son is able to have two sets of grandparents. You guys have healthy and beneficial and good relationships, that you actually are a family. That's inspirational to me. That's incredible. How did you work through all of the trauma and the stuff that you went through? How'd you get out to the other side of that?
The older I get, the more I've met diverse people. I've met people that have experienced trauma. I've had the chance to back away from the trauma I've experienced, at least pull the emotions away from it and see it just as facts and as it was. And actually being able to see things from an adult standpoint and from the standpoint of a parent. I believe just living and growing and learning has helped me see things from other perspectives. And it is a lot easier to forgive now. And I know what it's like to feel not good enough and to feel like no matter what I do, I'm never going to be accepted. And it's very hard to hold a grudge and to show that toward others, like show someone else that they're not good enough for me or that they can't be forgiven, when for so long I just wanted that myself. Sorry, Wes, I don't know if that makes sense.
It does make sense, yeah. You don't want to extend the same hardships to others, even if they have let you down or have wronged you.
Yeah, like I wanted so badly to be seen and understood. And did I handle every part of it right? No, but I always tried to lead from my heart. And these people in our lives that raised us and that poured so much of themselves into us, these are good people. They have good hearts. And maybe they didn't handle it all right either. But at the end of the day, I deserve forgiveness and love, and so do they. Yeah. And, I don't want to look back years from now and have regrets. I'm thankful for any relationships that can be in my life, and especially for my son. The more love that he can have in his life, the better.
Yeah.
So, being a parent has been huge when it comes to perspective.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, I think that's one of the more special parts of being a parent is seeing your parents be good grandparents to your child.
Yeah.
It's a different, I mean, you have a relationship with your parents, but just seeing that is a different level of joy, and is a really special thing. And I think
Definitely.
I think it's so cool that your son gets to have that and experience that.
Yes, that's huge.
The reason I wanted to have you on, and thank you so much for giving so much of your time, for sharing your story, for just being open and honest and willing to have this conversation. I think it's very important. I think that I know it's cliche, but I want people hearing this that might be experiencing things similar to what you've gone through, that may have strained relationships with family. I want them to know that it gets better.
Yes.
I want them to know that they can come out on the other side. They can survive this. They can be happy and healthy. They can find family. And then for folks that maybe just don't have relationships with somebody who is gay, and that this is just a theological thing, or this is just a the Bible says, or even a political thing for them, to maybe hear a different perspective that they haven't heard, that maybe this will kind of personalize and help them see. If you and I spent enough time together and talked about everything in the world, we would find plenty of stuff that we disagree on. Maybe even some things in the LGBTQ side of things. But one thing that we don't disagree on, that we never will, is that every person is someone that's made in God's image, that deserves to be loved, that deserves to be seen, that deserves a place to be themselves, that deserves to belong. And that's my hope for this conversation, is that it will be encouragement to people. It'll give them a new perspective. It'll help them to kind of see things in a new light. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you, Wes. It gets better. It really does. And you give me so much hope, coming from a very different background than mine in some ways, but are very similar in others, reaching out to someone to hopefully gain more insight into their experience, even though it's different from yours. That's a beautiful thing, and I'm just so thankful that I had the opportunity to share. And I
Absolutely.
hope that someone hears this and doesn't feel so alone.
Yeah, and we're actually I don't know if you know this, we're actually very big in India.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
36% of our listeners come from India, oddly enough.
Okay. Well,
So,
there you go.
yeah. Is there anybody that you'd like to give a shout out to, or anything that you want to point people toward? I want to give you space to do that.
Let's see. Well, of course, my wife and my little boy. I love them dearly. They are the reason I get up in the morning and, strive to be a good worker and a good mom and a good wife. If anyone is wanting a beautiful custom journal or custom jewelry, they can go to findblankbooks.com. And that is where I got the journal that helped me through some of those most tumultuous years. And I am Chelsey Glassco. I don't have a lot of social media, but I am on Instagram. If anyone ever did need some encouragement or, anything like that, I'd love to talk to them and share anything from my story if it could ever be helpful.
Very cool.
That's about it.
Very cool. Yeah. Findblankbooks.com.
Yes,
Cool.
that's right.
Yeah, go check it out. Go order you a custom journal. I bet they're bomb journals. I bet they're really dope.
So cool. So beautifully well done.
Awesome. Well, do you have time? We always do this thing before we end the show when we have a guest. We play a game. Do you have time to play a game?
Let's play a game. Let's do it.
Okay. So this is just kind of a goofy game that we invented on this show. It has been copied and pasted on a couple other platforms. I'm not too happy about it.
Oh, goodness.
It's called Cap or Dap. How it works is I will read off a statement. If you think that it is true and you agree with it, you will say dap, as in like, give me some dap, I agree. If you think that it is not true or you disagree, you will say cap, as in that's a lie, that's not true. So dap is true, cap is false. Are you ready to play?
I am ready.
Okay, the last guest I had on had to take notes. He's like, hold on, let me write that down. Number one, Bigfoot is real, cap or dap?
Cap. If unicorns can't be real, then Bigfoot can't be real.
That is the most stereotypical answer. I don't think you're allowed to talk about unicorns. I think. I'm just kidding.
That's all I got, man.
I'm just
Unicorns.
I think unicorns are awesome, and actually, according to Kim Jong-un, they exist in North Korea. So,
Ooh,
yeah,
I gotta go there. Just kidding. Not gonna do that.
No, yeah, I don't think they'll like that there. They won't. They don't like Americans. They don't really like any of us. So, I'm gonna say DAP, because I think the idea of Bigfoot is fun. I'm like 51-49. Like, I would love to see some actual evidence, but I'm gonna say DAP because I still have a strong imagination.
I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Number 2, Cap or DAP. Barron Trump, who is the son of former President Donald Trump, is 6'5". Cap or DAP?
Cap, because I thought he was 6'7".
Oh my gosh, is he 6'7"?
Yeah, when I Googled it one day because I saw a picture of him and I was like, wow, is he that tall or are they that short? And it said he was like 6'7", and I have never been able to forget that.
I literally saw that today, and that's why I included that in the game, because I was like, this can't be true. This man can't be that tall.
Oh, yeah, he is. He is very tall. And I'm just amazed. I hope he's really good at basketball or men's volleyball or something.
Yeah, he's not old. He's like a teenager, like a young teenager, 13 or 14, 15 maybe. I don't know. But he's super tall. He like towers over his whole family.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Pretty funny. I don't know. That I just got it off of a meme. It said he was 6'5", but he may be 6'7". You may have come in with the fact.
Without shoes, you never know.
Ooh, very true. Very true. See, I would never know that as a man. We don't think about these things. Cap or DAP, number 3, Kanye and Kim will eventually get back together.
Ugh. Cap. Ew, gross. I'm not a big fan. Ye gets on my nerves.
Not a big fan of Kim Ye, huh?
No, Ye has, I don't know. I just, ugh. I feel like they've been so glorified, and there's just so many other great things that could be glorified. I really struggle with them.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go the other way, and I'm gonna say DAP.
Okay.
I think that Pete Davidson is really funny, and I think he's a cool guy. But I just think that aside from Kim, nobody else in the world thinks as highly of her as Kanye. And
okay.
I think
I see where you're coming from.
like, it's not a healthy thing. I'm not I'm not saying that it's good, but I think at some point they love her enough that they'll decide to get back together with her.
Okay.
So I'm saying DAP on that one.
All right, that's fair.
Number 4, I don't know if you saw this. I don't know if you were watching the Academy Awards the other night. The slap heard around the world.
Yes.
Was the Will Smith slap real? Cap or DAP?
DAP. I believe it was real. I saw the tears from Will Smith during his acceptance speech, and I felt it. And I don't know, just the reaction from the Academy and stuff really makes me think.
Yeah.
This was not planned.
Yeah. I actually did a poll. I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to say DAP. I did a poll on Twitter, and it was like 50-50. And then finally it wound up being like almost 70% of people said that it was real. And it's kind of confusing because when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that's absolutely real. But then it hit me like, these guys are actors.
Yeah, that's true.
And they're good actors. Like, I think what pushes it over the edge for me is when he went back to his seat, when he was screaming at Chris Rock, he had that face that I have seen mamas and daddies and husbands and wives get when their family member or loved one has been mistreated. There's like a certain, eyes glazed over, just like inferno type face. And he was making that face.
I agree.
I think it was real. I agree with you. Number 5, Cap or DAP, aliens exist.
DAP.
You believe in aliens?
I think it's ridiculous for us to believe that we're the only beings out there.
Thank you.
I'm not saying that they're one planet away, but I have to, or that they look like us, talk like us, anything like that.
Right.
But I have to believe that there are other living organisms out there.
I'm so glad that you agree with me. I have people on this show, and they just know aliens aren't real. Don't believe it. In fact, my wife does. My wife thinks she's like, no, there's not aliens. Are you serious? I'm like, yes, of course there are. There are so many planets and galaxies. I just think that the odds are too great, you know?
Exactly.
There's some. Yeah. I don't know if they.
I don't want to meet them. I really don't. But I do believe that there's something out there.
Oh, I definitely want to meet them.
Oh gosh, you meet them, but don't tell me. Don't make me nervous.
It's a little scary. I mean, they might, I don't know if they would want to destroy our planet or take it over and slave our race. I don't know, but it'd be fun.
Yeah.
It'd be fun. I'm down for new experiences. So, number 6, Cap or Dap, Lucky Charms are the best cereal. I guess I should say is the best cereal. I don't know why I made Lucky Charms a person there. Lucky Charms is the best cereal. It's okay,
Cap. It's not. Cinnamon Toast Crunch and Frosted Flakes actually are the best cereals. So.
I do like Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Actually, I'm going to say Cap too. I like Captain Crunch the best.
Okay.
I know that once you eat the second bowl, it like tears the top of your mouth into pieces. But I'm a fan. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to stop yourself. We have to have a little self-control when it comes to the captain.
I never do. I'm like 2.5 bowls at least every time. My mouth just be hurting for 3 days. I don't even care.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. Number 7, Cap or Dap, Paul Rudd is delightful.
Okay, forgive me, but I got to remember who that is.
Paul Rudd is the one actor that easily gets confused with the other 2 actors. What is? I'm trying to think of what he's actually in. I'm
gonna say Cap because I don't know enough about him to know if he's delightful. He must not be that delightful because I don't know who he is.
He is, but my mind is going blank on the spot. He was on. This isn't going to be helpful at all. He was on Friends for a few episodes as Phoebe's boyfriend. That was like 20 years ago. What else? I can't think of like a current thing that he was in. But I'm telling you, Chelsey, he's delightful.
Okay. Well, can I give him like a kind of a dap?
Like a half a dap?
Yeah. Give a half a dap, and then I'll do my research and I'll follow up with you.
Give him a half a dap on my word. And then after we get done recording, go to Mama Google and type in Paul Rudd. And when you see his picture, it will click with you who he is. He's in movies that you have seen, I promise. I just can't think of one right now.
All right, that's fair. I will do my research.
But every time I see him on TV or a movie, I will actually say out loud, Paul Rudd is delightful. And my wife always says, you really like him. You always talk about how delightful he is. I just think he just makes me happy. He just does.
That's fair. I like that.
Yeah. I actually one time tweeted out from our In the Shed with Wes Twitter account a picture of him with that phrase. So I don't know. Borderline obsessive, but it's okay.
That's okay.
Number 8, and I can't wait to get a text from you telling me, oh, I do know who that is, because you will. Number 8, Cap or Dap, O.J. Simpson really did do it.
Dap.
Yeah.
I mean, I was so little, but like learning about it as I grew older, I'm like, oh my gosh, he did it. He did it. And that's really, really sad.
It is.
But yeah, he did it. Dap times 1,000.
So I got a haircut yesterday, and I had like a 15-minute conversation about the intricacies of the O.J. Simpson case with the lady that cuts my hair.
Nice.
That really happened. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I don't know what. I can't even remember why that came up. Why we were talking about it. We both agreed that he was guilty. The answer is Dap. He tried to write a book saying like this is how it happened. Yeah, he's not a nice guy. Anyway, moving on to number 9. Number 9, Cap or Dap, the Loch Ness Monster is real. We going through all of them.
Cap, because I listened to some podcasts on the Loch Ness Monster.
Did you really? Bonus points.
Yeah.
Bonus
legit.
points. I love it. I love it. The fact that you listen to actual podcasts about it.
I don't know. Currently, I do not have enough evidence to say DAP. So we're going to cap it for now.
I'm going DAP.
Okay.
Look, I'm all in on the Loch Ness Monster, and I just like to believe that these things are out there. And I don't know. I'm not saying that it's a dinosaur that has survived all this time. It might just be a really big eel. Like, I don't know. But people are seeing something. So I'm going DAP on Bigfoot. I'm going DAP on aliens. I'm going DAP on Loch Ness Monster. I'm all in.
I like that. That's good. It takes all kinds.
It does. Last one, cap or DAP, In the Shed with Wes Anderson is the best podcast that you've been on this week.
DAP.
Good.
DAP all day.
I put that one in there for fun, but I wasn't so confident. I'm like, what if she's done another podcast this week that I don't know about?
No, I haven't. This week has been pretty open. But, I mean, even if I had, this is pretty daptastic.
I'm going to have to, copyright that. Pretty daptastic. Yeah, I like that.
It's been daptastic, my friend.
It needs to be on a T-shirt at least.
Yes, definitely. Official merch, daptastic.
Well, that is it for Cap or Dap. And Chelsey, that's it for this episode. This is episode 37 of our podcast. It will be out on all platforms probably sometime tomorrow evening. So again, thank you so much for your time, for your transparency, for your openness. Everybody, make sure that you go check out that website where you can get one of those custom journals. If you'd like to talk to Chelsey, you can find her, Chelsey Glassco, on Instagram. Chelsey, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Wes. Have a good one.
You as well. That's all for this week. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. I can't either. It's back in the house and out of the shed for me. Thanks again for listening to episode 37. Make sure to subscribe, like, share, and review. It really does help. If you have any paranormal experiences, opinions about sports, or politics that you'd like to share, you can email the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. Again, that's intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. I might even read it on air. Look for us on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, the Good Pods app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And make sure to follow us on Twitter at InTheShed4. Tune in again next week when we'll hit the headlines, talk some sports, and take a look at the Ariel School UFO incident. This has been In the Shed with Wes Anderson, the best news show in the land covering politics, sports, and the paranormal. Have an adventurous and fulfilling weekend. I'll catch you tools later. Peace out, Boy Scout. Meemaw, we made it!